Welcome back. Now, in recent years, vandalism in South Africa has worsened and has been intensified by rolling blackouts. Amongst those grappling with this continuous issue is one of the country's largest telecoms providers, Telkom. Over 3,000 suspects have been arrested for vandalizing Telkom's infrastructure, showcasing the company's substantial efforts to combat multi-billion rand losses. Technology correspondent at Business Day, Mudiwa Gavaza, joins us to delve deeper into this matter in greater detail. Mudiwa, always a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Oluta.
Have we been able to quantify just how much, of vandalism, cable theft, economic sabotage really is impacting our telcos or even just Telkom?
Well, there's a lot to, unpack on this front because obviously right now we're talking about one of the mobile operators, rather one of the telecoms operators, because as you know, Telkom is mainly known for its fixed line and also mobile, but it's across the board, right? You've got the rail operators that also suffer from this issue and just infrastructure as a whole. Interestingly enough, the economic sabotage of critical infrastructure forum, that's actually a joint venture that's there between Telkom, Eskom, Prasa, and Transnet. It's a working group that they have, actually estimates that damage caused by copper theft across the country, costs it about 7 billion rand a year.
Oh.
And then the wider economic effect, they estimated around 187 billion rand a year. So it's huge problems, that we're talking about when it comes to, this vandalism issue. And a big part of that is obviously what's going on the communications front.
So let's talk about, Telkom's victory here. 3,000 people being arrested. It sounds like a good number, Mudia. Give us context with this number.
Well, if there's a couple of ways that you can quantify what that number actually means. Telkom actually goes into a little bit of detail, around what the number of arrests actually means, and also at the same time they also go into a lot of detail into the fact that this is not something that has happened, let's say, in a year or in a very short space of time, but rather this is something that has happened over a number of years. And they actually estimate that per year you're looking at roughly 500 to 600, arrests that are happening at a time around this particular issue, because this is an effort that has happened since July 2017 up until December 2023. But the thing that they're saying is that you can have that average at the 5 to 600, but they're saying that a lot of the action has happened in the last maybe 2 to 3 years, because the action has been intensified by load shedding. Because what load shedding does, right, as a simple enabler, right? Because we always talk about enablement. Load shedding is actually enabling theft and all that in a number of ways. Firstly, when there's load shedding and the site goes down, it means it's dark. People can go there. It becomes a little bit more vulnerable. And then secondly, it means that if you're cutting certain equipment, that equipment is no longer live. So the danger that's usually associated with cutting, live wires, cables, that type of thing, it's not there, because there's no power that's going to certain sites after a certain amount of time. So that's why they say that load shedding has actually exacerbated part of the issue.
Can we then quantify how much they've saved as a result? What they might have spent otherwise had there been no arrests. Is there a direct link between the arrests and what we're seeing with how much they're spending or not?
Well, I think some of the best numbers to use to quantify is the fact that, well, Telkom has real estate of around 7,500 towers on the mobile side, and all of those sites will have some type of backup power around them and that type of thing. And those batteries, those power sets are what's being targeted. So usually you're looking at it from a replacement cost point of view. The best estimate that we have is what Vodacom has been able to give us, because they say that between 2020 and 2023 they spent 4 billion on extra backup equipment. That's to make sure that the sites run, but they've also then had to spend 300 million extra on running costs, and a lot of that has to do with the replacement, because each one of these batteries costs a lot of money. And if you go to a typical site, Telkom might have maybe 6 batteries that they have at a typical site. And if you think of it, the thousands that each one of these batteries is worth, and then you multiply. So for each site, you might be, easily 50, 100,000 every time that you're replacing some of these batteries. So that's why it's such a huge strain on them. So if you then multiply that across the portfolio, because it's not a Gauteng issue, it's not a Limpopo issue. This thing is happening all across the country. One, two, more than anything else is also the reputation damage, because if your network goes out in your area, you're not sitting there saying, "Oh my gosh, I think Telkom might have had some stolen infrastructure." You're just thinking, Telkom network trash, or Telkom network is not at the level that it's meant to be, right? So all of that stuff then feeds in, and you might have people potentially switching over to what they perceive to be a better network. Maybe it's just the cell phone tower that hasn't been targeted in your area, but then all of that then feeds into the perception around network quality.
That's all we have time for this afternoon. Mudiwa, thank you for unpacking that one for us. That was technology correspondent at Business Day, Mudiwa Gavaza.